welcome back. I'm Tyler, you're watching Scarfing Scarves, and welcome to the 19th installment of Last Week Lolita News. At the top of the segment, fuck if I should know since I've been gone for a month, and for all I know, the lot of you have moved on to a style of clothing that won't get you propositioned by middle-aged men who never outgrew the assumption that anything a woman does must have to do with his dick. This radio silence has been exacerbated by the fact that all of you have gotten together and decided that you like each other again, and I must say that in the wake of this most recent presidential election and the ensuing fallout of negativity, division, and general global panic, I knew I had two choices. I could celebrate this small pocket of peace like a decent human being, or I could hit it over the head with a lamp, wrap my fingers around its throat, and squeeze until it stopped breathing. Which is to say, this looks like Squidward's face, this is the participation ribbon of dresses, and this carriage ride to Castle Mirage is the most disappointing prequel since the advent of Rogue One. Who needs characters when you can have special effects, and it's true that nothing will make you money faster than tossing in enough callbacks to jerk off an entire generation. Meanwhile, BTSSB is still releasing paragraphs in place of print names, Meta's gonna meta, and Innocent World Sale may have resulted in the most vicious granny fight since the Great Pudding Shortage of 1936. That's funny because of retirement homes, and this show will retire the ageist drivel in regards to every mention of this brand's name the very second it gets old. Speaking of things that go creak in the night, Lolita fashion reseller and retailer Wonderwelt recently announced that they'll be carrying the iconic gothic brand Moi Meme Moiti. The revelation comes along with the promise of an upcoming interview with the designer himself, Mana of the now defunct band Malice Miser, and for those of you unfamiliar with his interpersonal style, you can expect to enjoy the following.
ソネットミュージックをご覧の皆さん、こんにちは。マナ様です。
Don't do drugs, kids. Unless they're fun and make you popular, because it seems to have worked out pretty well for an aging Japanese crossdresser whose entire aesthetic shtick revolves around two colors and the role-playing abilities of a middle schooler's fanfiction.net. Call him Icewing Dragon Tits and you're halfway to the next 50 shades of black and blue. Moving on to social news, Lolita Facebook group Ruffle Chat sent us all a reminder of our eventual demise in the form of one poster's wonderment about what other Lolitas would be doing with their wardrobes in the event that they ruffled off this mortal coil. The question came a day before the holiday most known for reminding single people that they suck, and the foremost plans to dispense with their hoard moved between planning to stuff them in a box and take them 6 feet under, leaving them to a friend, and or live streaming their cremation so that they could go out in a blaze of Barando glory. Of course, some people had to say that they would have them sold off and donate the proceeds to charity, but luckily we can rest in the assurance that it's nigh impossible to fluff your own moral superiority once you're stiffer than the resale value of a Cat's Tea Party set. Of course I'm just kidding, it's nice and all to think of others, but if you think for a second that my getting hit by a bus will end in the relinquishment of my wardrobe, then you're going to have to pry these dresses out of my cold, zombified hands. Don't think I'm some kind of Dawn of the Dead stumbler either. This is 28 days later and I will run your ass down. Ahem. As that about wraps up the week, we return to that website everyone loves to hate in a bit called Whatif Lace Market. The premise is simple. I browse here, find something that confuses, disturbs, or makes me question the whole of humanity, and you benefit from the dark marks it leaves on my soul. So, without further ado, let's get this going. What the fuzz that? Now, some of you might not see what's wrong with this picture. Some of you might have been brought into the fashion during a time that the great reign of the seemingly unending sock puppet accounts representing this retailer were long buried under the dust of LiveJournal in general. Some of you might be living in an underground bunker in the midst of a media blackout owed primarily to the fact that you abandoned all contact with the outside world during the Cold War and have yet to reconnect with a society that you believed perished like the rise and fall of New Coke. Because that, at least, would make some sense. Sure, you have to ignore the fact that a media blackout precludes you from watching this show, and I'm pretty sure the primary priorities of a person locked in a bunker probably wouldn't include watching some frilly prat prattle on about angelic pretty. But hey, it still makes more sense than listing this dress for sale on a platform frequented by people who can hardly look at a Pepperidge Farm cookie without suffering an acute attack of PTSD. Because Milanooooo was that bad. Oh, Tyler, you're just overreacting. It was that bad! This legitimately happened. That bow was sewn around a piece of cardboard because you know when you want to wash your dress, you want a piece of bleeding paper in there. The material was thin enough to make Jesus cry, and outside of looking like a bridesmaid dress made by someone who hopes you frock off and die, the petticoat they sent along with it was nothing more than a plastic hoop with some cloth sewn around it. A knee-length plastic hoop for a floor-length dress. I don't have a joke here, but I want you all to know that no one deserves to look like they stole a child's hula hoop and stuffed it up their ass. Keep in mind that these photos were posted to the primary watering hole of the Lolita community at the time, egl.livejournal.com, in late 2009. Milanooooo was banned the very next day for throwing a shit fit and sock puppeting up a storm, and there was already a working list of several of their scam fronts and false accounts up and running. So it should be no surprise that by December of 2011, not only had Milanooooo managed to cement its reputation as a skulking, lying front of puppy kickers and thieves, there was a constantly updated and alphabetized list of Milanooooo scam shops with links to further reviews, sites carrying the seller, and possible product descriptions that could lead you to receiving a pile of lace and a middle finger. Alphabetized, people! Do you know how much you have to hate something before it gets summoned up, sorted, and then alphabetized? So you can understand this reporter's surprise when I read this dress's description included that it was purchased in 2011 with the line, "Apparently Milanooooo is considered a scam site now, but it worked fine when I bought it then." Let me focus your attention on the word now. Now implies things like the present. It can be used as a way to differentiate this instance of time from the past, and generally in this context is deployed to assure the buyer that while Milanooooo might be a steaming pile of cheap lace and general failure now, they were once a perfectly fine seller who totally wouldn't steal your eyes out of your skull and make a sock puppet account to sell them right back to you at an inflated price, except you'll receive marbles instead of eyes, because what did you expect paying $50 for eye surgery, you cheap penny-pinching prick? Add $5 to that $50 operation and you'll have the lowest bid acceptable on this dress. Buy it now for $85 and you'll have purchased the last bit of my hope for humanity. Because that's all the time we have for tonight. Thank you for watching Last Week Lolita News, and be sure to tune in next week when we tackle the tough questions like, will Mana say words? Has AP entered a time warp? And should we be worried about the rise of the alt-furry movement? Next time on Last Week Lolita News. This has been Tyler. You've been watching Scarfing Scarves, and I'll catch you next time. Hey there, thanks for enduring whatever overly verbose test of patience I beamed directly into your corneas. I'd like to send an insurmountably massive thank you to my patrons whose unwavering support of this nonsense is primarily responsible for my ability to continue to stuff too many words into a sentence. And should you not be too demotivated by the inescapable tide of angry Cheetos and general evil in the world, you can drop by the LWLN Patreon to keep this show running and support the salinity content of the entire planet in the confines of one channel. This reporter is not responsible for any ensuing cardiac arrest. Thanks again, guys, and I'll catch you next time on Last Week Lolita News.